Greetings, greetings. Welcome. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, a talk show based here in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And you are at a virtual meet and greet of Allison Tant, Florida House of Representative District 9 candidate. So, welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much, Nicole. This is fun. I've been looking forward to this for a week. So this is awesome.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, District 9, tell the folks kind of what this District 9 encompasses first.
District 9 is all Leon County. It's all the way from downtown through the Georgia line, and it snakes back around to Southwood in that area. It's shared with Ramon Alexander, who is a good friend,
and that's District 8, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And so it's just really the heart of Tallahassee, and full of just wonderful people that I've been working and playing with for 30 years or so.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So tell the folks who may not know you, who is Allison Tant? Where you from? What you do before running for office, and what you're passionate about.
Okay. Well, I'm Allison Tant, and I am a Jacksonville, Florida native. I grew up in Jacksonville. I was born in Jacksonville, lived my life in Duval, came over here to go to college, and I'll tell you how I got there. My mom was one of 8 children born into poverty in North Carolina. She and her siblings were raised by my grandmother by herself, and my grandmother had one dress that she had to take off to wash and then put back on as soon as it dried on the line.
Oh, wow.
And they picked berries, strawberries, and blueberries and tobacco in the fields of North Carolina, all of them together. And then they would go to school, and then they would go back to the fields after school. And my mom, for her, faith and family was everything. And my dad was put in an orphanage at the age of 8. His mother had been abandoned by his father. And the Depression came along. She had no way to feed him. And so she put him and an older sibling of his, my aunt, into an orphanage in North Carolina, where he graduated from high school from that same orphanage. It was the Kennedy Baptist Children's Home in Kinston, North Carolina. And he joined the Merchant Marines when he graduated from high school, and then enlisted in the Army when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Okay. So my parents and I came from obviously very humble beginnings, and my parents were really part of the greatest generation that faced the greatest challenges, not unlike what our economy and what we're facing today in some respects. And they worked their way out of poverty and into the middle class. I would say that they both worked for the Seaboard Coastline. They started with Atlantic Coastline Railroad in North Carolina and moved to Jacksonville. And so, once I got to Jacksonville, along I came. And so that's how I grew up in Jacksonville.
Okay.
And then when I was when I was growing up as a child, up until, forever, my mom used to say to me, "You're going to get your education."
Okay.
She said to me, "We are not going to have anything to leave you. We don't have anything to give you. The one thing we're going to give you is the notion that you are going to go to college. You're going to work hard, and you're going to set your mind to do something and stay with it until you do it."
Okay.
And my dad always said his saying was, "You're going to finish what you start."
All right.
So with student loans, I was the first to go to college in my family. And so with student loans, I went to Florida State University.
All right, go Noles.
Yeah, go Noles. So driving up to Tallahassee, I'm thinking, this is going to be the state capital. This is going to be awesome. And there's cow pastures all along I-10. And then we drove in on Tennessee or Mayhem. I thought, I see Leon High School, and I think, is that the college? It was I'd never seen a college, right? So I was all excited to see where this was, and then I came to FSU, graduated from FSU, and left for a couple of years to go work in the legislature. So when I was in college, my sister joined me in college. He decided to come to FSU as well. And my mom and dad were struggling with both of us in college. And even though I had student loans, it was just hard for them with two of us in school. So
Right.
I was able to get a job. And my job was actually a paid internship in the office of Governor Bob Graham.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that it just, it was I was in the
One of my favorites.
Yes, absolutely. And I was put in the office of planning and budgeting, which is, of course, like for me as a non-numbers person, I was like, really, that's where I'm going. But I saw as a young woman, it was very eye-opening to see the impact of smart, efficient government and what it can look like for real people. And then conversely, what would happen to real people without that. And the safety net that is really should be there for people when they need it. I mean, and we're seeing a prime example right now.
Right.
We have not invested in the safety net for people. And so I did that. Then I went back home to Jacksonville and I started working for State Senator Maddox Hare.
Okay.
Then moved to Tampa because I was, of course, dating a boy. Moved to Tampa, and he was down there, and went to work for a House member, two House members who were Democrats from down in the Tampa area, Mark Gibbons and Brian Rush. Then came back up to Tallahassee. And I've been here from 1988. Now, I went to college, I graduated college in 1983 and then came back in 1988, and I've been here ever since.
Gotcha.
And, so this is my home. I've had 3 kids here, all of whom have been, public school students. And I've lived my life here and just given back to the community here, worked across the community now for a couple of decades. Doing stuff not unlike what you guys all do, and trying to be part of the fabric of the community. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, we have a few guests on here who I want to acknowledge. So we got City Commissioner Curtis Richardson. And he says that he's from Green Cove Springs.
Yes, OMG. So my dad worked for the railroad. My parents both worked for the railroad. And I remember for a few years my mom didn't work, and she was my first grade homeroom teacher. And so she got my dad to arrange for us to have a field trip on the train from Jacksonville to Green Cove Springs.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was like the biggest thing all of us 6-year-olds had ever done. So,
wow. Okay.
Green Cove Springs.
Cool. So I want to invite those of you who are viewing to meet Allison. So let us know where you're viewing this live from. Send us your city and state. I know Curtis is here. We have Mr. Ben Gaskins on. He says, hey, guys, so let us know where you're watching from. Let us know. Say hi to Allison. This is a virtual meet and greet. So just pretend we're in a space and you're coming to meet her in person. All right. So let us know where you're from.
I'm very excited to meet you guys.
Yes. All right. So while we're waiting on them to do that, I want to kind of dive into what you're passionate about. What's your platform? Oh boy, they are really chiming in. Hold on. So before you dive in, let's all right. So Mr. Ben is in Valdosta. We got Patricia Day on here.
Hey. How are you, Patricia? You and I work on a board together. Love that woman. So.
We got Anita Favors on here. We got Stetta Barnhart.
Yes, I love that.
Lori Gordon on here. Jesse Jones from Tallahassee. We got Ursula Staten on here as well. So lots of folks tuning in. And Mr. Vonzel Deshaun is on here. Greetings. Long time no see, brother. Hope you're doing well. So, okay. Who is this joining us?
This is my son, Jeremy. He's probably the reason why I'm running. So anyway,
wonderful. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Good to see you.
Yeah, it is.
Wonderful.
If I will take it.
You can go talk to Dad about it, all right? Because I'm on a Zoom, okay?
You mind if I take off?
Report. All right.
Okay. So tell me about your platform. Like you said, Jeremy is part of why you're running. Tell me about that.
Well, Jeremy was born a little early. He's one of my twins. My twins came early, and Jeremy was extremely low birth weight. He has a condition called Williams syndrome. I know you're doing fine with it now, but he has a condition that made him a very slow grower in utero, and so and slow grower in real life. And he's had 8 surgeries, one of which was open heart. He was an early intervention baby with Children's Home Society, which is the board I got to serve on with Pat. He's just faced ongoing challenges. And so because of the issues that he's faced, I left the workforce, probably one of a zenith point in my career, to be home to address his issues. And at my first IEP meeting with him with the school district, they stacked the room, and it was like 19-1. Who thinks Jeremy gets services? Mom raises her hand. Everybody, all the hands go up and say no. They rolled out their big long titles. And all I could think about was, when I was going through that, is I feel ambushed. And if I feel ambushed, what does another mom feel like who maybe doesn't have any background putting together meetings like this or going to meetings like this? What does another mom do whose kid is far more disabled than mine? What does another mom do who's maybe working 3 jobs?
Right.
Can hardly get to an IEP. What does another mom do who doesn't speak the language? What does another mom do who doesn't have a supportive husband? So all these things are rolling through my head. And it was at that point that he was 3 years old that I just started to dig in on education policy and rules and the way they apply to people with children with disabilities. And, just started to push back really hard on those things, going about and getting those things addressed year after year. So just becoming an advocate for people like him. And then I created, so that's going to be a platform of mine in the legislature, and it doesn't just start with education, and it doesn't just start with people with disabilities, because I know when my mom lived with me I was her caregiver for 10 years, and she lived in my home with me, and it was a blessing. But I kept thinking, if she didn't have us, what would she do? Like, what would another family do if we, there's just not there's a lot of ignored population. There are people who've been deliberately forgotten, deliberately ignored. It's vulnerable. That's the reason I'm running. It's for vulnerable people that need somebody in their corner. And then so Independence Landing and Keys. So when I knew that Jeremy was going to face challenges in education, I got together a bunch of moms, and we started raising money to send students with disabilities on to continuing education of their choice and capability. The money was wherever the student went. And so over the years, we've raised about $400,000, and we've awarded 200 and some odd scholarships. We've created the Tallahassee Eagle Connections program, which is a program for cognitively impaired students to get a college experience and job training. And then we've created a summer institute that teaches students with disabilities and adults with disabilities job, independence, life skills, social skills. And so we have served in those 2 programs about 200 people, as well as on top of the scholarships that we've awarded. And so this is something we've been doing for a long time. And so it's been my purpose and my path and how I've addressed my pain, right? It's turning pain into purpose and fear and some sort of forced to deal with my anxiety about his future. And so then I started looking into housing for people with disabilities, and thankfully Florida Housing has granted Independence Landing the ability to move forward on creating a planned community for people with cognitive disabilities, utilizing affordable housing, both dollars and access to affordable housing instruments. And so we're really, yes, thank you. I'm just thrilled. And Commissioner Richardson was one of the ones who saw early on the value of this and the value of people with disabilities. And so I'm very grateful, Curtis, for your note on that, because he was on the commission when the commission voted to help rezone, to give us the authority to pursue land reuse, land changes, land use changes like rezoning and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Do that. So At any rate, so I've just been hard at work in all those areas. And so that is, again, another idea of the safety net that needs to be there for people who can't do for themselves. We can talk about pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps every single day of the week. And gosh knows, I'm a product of hard work. You're a product of hard work. But then there are times that no matter how hard you work, you got to have a little extra help. And particularly if you're born with disabilities, if you've had an accident that results in disabilities, and just like right now with COVID, through no fault of anybody, people have lost jobs. Nobody's been a bad worker. People have lost their jobs through no fault of their own because of this economy that we're dealing with. And the safety net that's supposed to be under them, the unemployment system's not working for them. So that is something I'm going to be anxious to look into, is the funding that's there and that's not there, and making sure the funding that is supposed to be utilized for a purpose is utilized for the purpose that it is intended for. You may recall earlier in the year that the domestic violence entity that was supposed to be in charge of providing all the domestic violence programs across the state, the money, an egregious amount of money was going into the pocket of the CEO. Prior to that, for disabled people, the Able Trust, the funding there went into the pocket of this. The CEO had siphoned off dollars that was supposed to be used to incentivize employers to hire people with disabilities, and had put them in a separate trust fund that was not authorized. And so if those are happening in two programs there where it's supposed to be the safety net for people, what else is going on? And I think that and particularly right now in the time of COVID, when dollars are going to be more precious and more scant because our economy, our tax base in Florida is based on sales tax. We're not buying things because of this economy. We're going to have less dollars to support our state. Every dollar is going to matter more than any, and it's got to be done right. And one of the things I am proud of is that every dollar I've raised for a charity, for when I was with the party, every dollar I've ever raised, I could tell you exactly where it went and how it was spent, and I followed the purpose and for which it was donated or provided. So
we need that type of accountability and transparency with our leaders on the state level, on the local level,
all the way up. I mean, and frankly, it's even a higher burden when it comes to the fact that these are your dollars and my dollars, our public dollars, right? So these are our dollars that come out of our pockets from our paycheck. And I think that there's a higher burden on government to be the most responsible stewards. So and I in particular feel that the money should be spent on human services. That's where it has to go, and particularly right now while we're trying to dig our way out of COVID.
Okay. So you mentioned those who are vulnerable with, disabilities. You've also mentioned budgeting and the use of public funds. Is there anything else that you are passionate about as it relates to your running for District 9?
I'm very concerned about gun violence. I was very involved with getting the Parkland kids to Tallahassee to be heard after the Parkland shootings. And Lord knows in Tallahassee we've had too many shootings. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I walked the halls with two young women from Rickards High School to ask them to ask people not to arm teachers. And I quickly, in my first meeting with them, decided to keep my mouth shut and let them talk because they were so good. One of the things they said, which was so touching to me, as well as far more informative than anything that I could say, was that they said, my fellow classmen live with gun violence every single day. In the front yard, in the backyard, they hear guns going off, they see guns. The only break they get from guns is in a classroom. And
Wow.
that's why they said that's why teachers should not be armed. They need a break from that. And that was so eye-opening to me. And I know that you and Talithia and Christique have been very, very, very busy in the communities where there have been too much and too many tragedies and too much gun violence that I just want to help. I want to be able to help. I want to bring solutions to the table where I can. So that's going to be something. And obviously part of that is criminal justice reform. And that is something that I think needs to be taken seriously. The term of defund the police, I think, is a term that really doesn't describe what anybody really wants. I think reform of funding or redirection of funding or increased funding for other purposes, like, when there's a mental health need versus, a police need, we ought to be able to bring in and pay for mental health assistance for people. Maybe send in an EMT with a mental health worker when there's a situation where police law enforcement is not necessary to be as a first watch. The first responder, and oftentimes, police officers don't get training in social work.
Absolutely.
But yet they see humanity in our worst moments, right? When there's a tragic accident, there's a big misunderstanding, or there's a crime committed, and you see people at their worst. And I think that our officers need to be able to have some time to get some support for themselves to decompress from that, and then also be followed, because I can't imagine that you see what you see and not change.
Right.
So, I think that there's got to be more ways to address the kind of the trauma that they're going to see. And that's only going to help our citizens, I think. And so, but I do think that there's got to be some changes. And I believe that we're lucky in Tallahassee because we have an amazing criminal justice school right here with FSU. And then, of course, Dr. Murdaugh is himself from the Law Enforcement Academy, and I'm
and FAMU too, yes.
And so why aren't we should be bringing those brilliant minds with the most up-to-date information to the table, because this is what they do. They study it, they come up with new policy, and then have them and a thorough review of HR policies, as well as training, as well as psych tests, and maybe having repeated tests down the road as people have worked with law enforcement to make sure that that if they they're okay.
Absolutely.
Those are things I'm very interested in doing, but it's not. So those are some of the issues that I'm most, and the other one would be resilience, and how our state recovers from COVID, how we recover from storms, and we're a peninsula. We are more subject to weather, more subject to sea level rise, more subject to all of that than just any other state in the country. And I would like to make sure that we're talking about resiliency, whether it's starting with the science and looking at how we're building so that we can keep our property values strong, how we're, what we're doing to make sure that we're not going to be walking out our front doors into a big pile of mud because it's too much water on the ground, and how we can address all of those things. And so I think that resiliency is going to be a major concern of mine as well.
Yes. Lots of issues. So we have a few more folks on here who are commenting. Seta says, I like this lady, love her heart and passion. That Blue Lotus, who was on the show last week, she's saying greetings. And then Bill Shack, who is my LT 37 classmate.
Jack, how are you, dude?
He wrote a whole paragraph, about how you ran a nonprofit for people with intellectual disabilities. He saw firsthand the need for an independence landing type living, social arrangements, social activities are critically important as well. He's happy to see the city improve this project to help in any way they can. So he shares in your passion for
Yes.
people with disabilities because
Mhm.
he has an autistic son.
Yes, and
Um,
He does a whole lot of work every single day for other people at the homeless shelter. So Bill has a heart for others as well, and that's what makes Tallahassee one of the many things that makes Tallahassee a remarkable community.
Indeed, indeed. So you mentioned Talithia and Christique. Look who's here.
Hello, girlies.
All right.
Good evening. Greetings, greetings.
Greetings and greetings to you. Cutie.
Mhm.
So what were you off doing today, Miss Wonder Woman?
So y'all didn't catch today's installment of the Southside Summer Break Spot.
I saw it early this morning, but I was out running, putting my signs all over town. So.
Listen, I understand. Hey, real recognizes real. So we are just glad to just be sitting down for an hour, right? That's what's important. So I've been listening to you guys go back and forth on the issues, and you brought up a lot of good and outstanding points that I hope we can get into in a minute with some conversation.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would like for Christique to talk about Promise Keepers because I am psyched about Peace Keepers. Sorry. Yes. Well, I am jazzed about that program. Promise Keepers is a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah, that's another.
That's a whole other group.
Listen, Allison, you are crazy. First of all, it's the peacemakers. You know, this thing is the peacekeepers. I'm like, we don't work for the UN just yet, but
You're gonna make it happen for Tallahassee.
Yes. No, just amazing. Being in engagement, you find that there's a lot of levels and a lot of opportunities for authentic engagement. And the great thing about living in a place like Tallahassee is everybody cares in their realm of operation. And so it's just been amazing to see these guys who are ex-offenders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are flipping the script on what we deem as productive citizenship in Tallahassee, and we have a group of guys who are ex-offenders and persons who want to right wrongs that maybe they have made or right wrongs that others have made in neighborhoods that they care about all throughout Tallahassee, Leon County. So to me, that's the way forward in community and neighborhood advocacy. And so, hopefully we'll get to talk a little bit more about the work that those guys are doing here.
Keep talking. This is awesome. Yeah. How can we help?
Well, I mean, the first thing is that, gun violence is not something that is a new thing in Tallahassee, Leon County. We've had our share of issues dating way back to the 80s in regards to turf wars and different types of issues that have resulted in violence of one sort or another. Add that to the influx of drugs in community of colors, and add to that the deficit of employment opportunities for advanced schooling, advanced training. And so we have this big plug that we have to unstick so that we can see opportunity flow into communities that have basically not to the degree that other communities have had them. And so the peacemakers, as a result of a number of the shootings that happened last year at the end of January, a group of guys from the communities impacted came together and said, look, we need to do something about this. And I was accidentally at the meeting. I promise it was accidental.
It's always the way it works, though. That you were meant to be there.
It was so providential, serendipitous. And so what I did was able to just work along those guys, Al Batts, and guys like Gary McPherson, who works at Rickards, Tim Myers, who works with a lot of initiatives in Frenchtown, just a number of different guys who came together. Greg James, who was there and who has a robust resume in working with the ex-offender populations and demographic, and who was just a real cheerleader and undergirder. So we were able to get those guys together. And since February last year, they have been doing meaningful engagement and outreach. The sheriff recognized the work very early on and brought them on as a community engagement aspect of the All In initiative that we continue to function in as a community outreach and engagement component of the All In initiative. And we have engaged at this point over 16 communities within communities in Tallahassee. We focus on the apartment complexes and areas where people don't tend to go on purpose. But we want to let our neighbors know in Sunrise, in Leon Arms, in Macon, in all of these apartment complexes, they have a right to live safe and safe and secure lives, just like everybody else does. And to the degree that public policy can dictate that safety, to the degree that we can unplug some of these generational issues of access, and to the degree that we can listen. I mean, that's whole gamut of just listening to what people are saying, listening to what they say they need, and not us presuming that we know. That is what the work of the Peacemakers has done. It's done for me. It's been very educational, and I've been in neighborhood advocacy for almost 20 years. And
give us some examples of what surprised you there.
Well, what really surprised me is that people think that just because you're in a neighborhood that is quote unquote low income, that you don't have no money. And what we've done is we've hosted a series of pancake breakfasts in the communities that we've served, and people are bringing us money, and we're like, no, this free. Let me give it to you. I've had people come and just drop $20 bills in my pocket. I've told them no, and they're like, no, you're gonna take this. So to that end, we think that folks who we categorize as poor don't have resources. They have resources. They're surviving. They have more wisdom in regards to how you sustain in crisis circumstances than a lot of us do. We're very, very sheltered in a lot of different aspects, but I've learned a great deal about the misconceptions people have about what they call the poor. And listen, they ain't the poor, they're the surviving. And guess what? I think we need to give them that respect, in that they are surviving regardless of the gaps and the barriers to access and the barriers to resource. They're surviving, and many of them are graduating their children from high school. Many of them are seeing the second generation go to college. They're seeing the second generation buy homes. They are surviving, and they are breaking the cycle. So we need to work with them and undergird our neighbors as they seek a better lives for themselves, and leave some of those misconceptions out the door. People who are poor don't enjoy being poor. So if you give them access to a different type of life, guess what? They'll take it too.
Mm-hmm. All right. So joining us, welcoming Talithia Edwards.
Hey, Talithia.
Hey, girl.
Hey, cute. Y'all are so cute together. So, Talithia, how many people did you register to vote this afternoon or today?
We registered probably, honestly, probably close to 15 if we round up.
That's good.
A lot of them were ex-felons who thought that they could not register. They had misinformation. We had a few people that signed up to get their mail-in ballot, which was really, really good. Others who were like, no, I'm going to go to the polls. And we like, listen, this is a just in case. You can still go to the polls if that's your plan. But, we're out here. We had some food. You turn on the music and have a little food, you get people. And it was so good to have the conversation, because I met a young man. We went live on Brandy Knight's page. But this young man, so eloquent. I heard Christique, what she was talking about. Christique, he talked about being a convict. That's how he described himself since he was 9 years old. And that the streets raised him. He said, I was not properly raised. But he was so articulate. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. I asked him, I said, so tell us how we fix this. How do we get you the way you want to be? And he was like, really, this is our job in our community to actually get the job done. I haven't seen any system support me. And I asked him, I said, so tell me what you want to do. He said, really? I want to be a lawyer. I said, well, it ain't too late for that. I said, it's not too late. He was so articulate. If you go back and you listen to the live, he had his thoughts together. He had thought about this thing. So he was not just he was shooting off the cuff, but he had thought about it so much. This was his life. And I said, sir, if you give me your number, I promise you, I will do my best to put you in contact with people who can get you on the road to where you want to be. And that was the highlight of my day.
That's why I love this town. Just exactly what you just talked about. Just it's one by one by one by one. So that actually brings up a good point. Well, what's interesting, because a couple of years ago, I was going door to door over there in an apartment complex off Pasco, somewhere over there. And even young people would answer the door, and it kind of broke my heart. They were like, I can't register to vote because I'm a felon. Now, some of them were fooling, because the grandma came to the door and said, "You're not either. Get over here and fill this out." But but that everybody knew that was a barrier. Even young people knew that was a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
So thank goodness for Amendment 4. I was a supporter of that, and so it's going to be an issue again.
We're having a little crackle breakup. Hold on, let's see.
Is it you or me? I hope it's not me because I'm not touching anything.
Okay, go ahead, Allison.
Okay, so we got some dates we got to talk about. So people can register to vote up until July 20th. So that's the clock is ticking on those dates. Ballots have been mailed. So on Thursday of last week, the supervisor of elections sent home to anybody who had requested a ballot, had sent them home, sent them to their addresses. So people have absentee ballots at home for those who want to vote by mail, and then they can turn those ballots in up until the day of the election. They can walk in with their ballot, and then vote by mail in person starts on August the 3rd. At the early vote locations. And I don't have those locations yet. I'm waiting. I keep checking the site. I haven't looked at it, but so that we got some pretty big things coming up. So right here is going to be one thing after the other. And then the last date and election day is August the 18th, Tuesday the 18th. So we have a lot to get people to vote. The voting is critically important, as you know, and believe, a critically important obligation as well as a right. And it's not a privilege, it's a right, and we need to exercise that right. And it is a voice that, lots of people really worked hard to help us get. And so I wanted to tell you a quick story. So at the presidential preference, I filled out my absentee ballot at home, or my vote by mail ballot at home. And then I realized after I had sealed it and signed it and dated it that I had left the privacy cover out. And I was like, oh no, they're not going to take my ballot because I don't have my privacy. I didn't have to put it in the privacy seal. And I tried to edge open the seal to put my ballot in. And then of course I messed up the seal. So I was like, so I went to vote in person. And when I walked in, and I gave them my ID, they said, oh, we see here that we mailed you a ballot. And I said, you did? I messed it up because I didn't put the privacy thing in, and I was all discombobulated. I tried to open it, and I messed up the seal, and I knew that wouldn't be taken. And they said, oh, that's not a problem. We'll just indicate here that you surrendered that ballot and you're going to vote in person. So even if you decide to not vote by absentee, if you're worried about that, you can submit the ballot and then vote in person. They will not count two of those. You'll only be able to do one. And so
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I know there's been some concern around ballots being counted, especially if they're by mail. So,
the other thing they did after the last session, so after I think the 18th session, after the 18th session, is they changed the law so that instead of ballots being stored and then start the counting on election day, you can start counting earlier now. So it won't be like in Broward County where they found boxes like behind us, a doorstop or something. So it won't be like that you can actually start counting ballots upon receipt up until, the day before the election. So, so that's a new provision in the statute.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to do a little bit of station ID for folks that may just be tuning in. Okay. This is a virtual meet and greet. I am Nicole Everett, Conversations with Nicole, and we are talking with Miss Allison Tant, Florida House of Representative District 9 candidate. She is running for District 9 for the Florida House, and we have been talking about her upbringing, her, work ethic, as well as the things that she is passionate about and why she's running for office. And we have special guests, Miss Talithia Edwards and Miss Christique Henry. But I do want to invite the viewers too, if you have any questions that you want to ask Allison, because again, this is a meet and greet, even though we're virtual. By all means, put them in the comment, put your questions in the comment, and we will address them. All right. So, Allison, I know we have with COVID been looking at doing things more, virtually, digitally as well. How do you see that affecting, what you will be doing in the house?
That's going to be an interesting question. I've actually given that some thought because, with school starting, I've already been thinking about this whole thing because I've got a daughter who is going into her senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. She wants to be in school with her friends, have a senior year. And with COVID numbers going up, I'm like, just like every other parent here, wondering what the future holds. And I've got a husband he's in his 70s, and I got Jeremy who's had 8 surgeries, and the underlying conditions of people with, it's just going to, so COVID is, first of all, to campaign in a time of COVID, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to meet friends here and to meet friends across our community. It's very, very hard to do anything but this, because if something happened to somebody and they got sick because we were together, I'd never forgive myself. You know that. And so then, and I marvel at you ladies getting out and doing what you're doing. And I love the fact that you're wearing your masks and you're taking that seriously. And the thing about the masks, I'm going to talk about the mask for a half a second.
Okay.
I don't get what the big hairy deal is about the fight over a mask. So here's what I tell people. It's like, public health equates to economic health. If we want our economy to heal, we can do something to help. Mm-hmm. And that is by wearing this mask. If we can protect when a person knows that they can walk into a business, conduct their business, and walk out and remain COVID free, they're going to go to that business. And so it's all equated to consumer confidence. And so as we can make consumers confident in all this, we can heal our economy. And as far as I'm concerned, a mask is a simple way, along with social distancing, along with washing our hands. But a mask is a very simple way to indicate that you care about your local community and you care about the economy, and you want to help heal this economy, because we're going to have a big lift to heal us. That's going to be an issue for us. So then I think wearing a mask is not too much trouble. It's like wearing a seatbelt. I wear a seatbelt when I drive my car. I don't get what the deal is about that.
So speaking of healing, we've had a lot of social unrest with the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ma Arbery.
Well, it was compounded by our local. So we were already dealing with these national news figures and just grief-stricken. And then we had our local deaths. It was like a 1, 2, 3 punch, right? Mm-hmm. It has been really, and that's why I'm so grateful to both Talithia and to Christique for all that you've done, and you too. And I love the fact that you're working on mental health and mental health providers for people of color. And I'm loving the fact that people are saying out loud, we've got to do more to get mental health to our children. And children of color, that's a huge issue for me. And I'm really applaud you guys for doing that work, because we've got to get more resources to the community. So healing's a big deal. We've got a lot of healing to do.
Absolutely.
Allison, to that point, there's a lot of healing. I totally agree. And a large part of that is going to be economic recovery, right? And so, we know that the COVID has impacted everyone, but it's also, disproportionately impacted people of color, businesses owned by people of color.
The African Americans and Hispanic people are dying and are much more affected health-wise. That's COVID. And so, we've got a lot of work to do. And then, you and I were talking about this the other day about looking at making sure that contracts, and particularly government contracts, include strong provisions for inclusion of minority businesses.
Yes.
Absolutely something I'm going to be very interested in. Yeah, honey, you can count on it. Count on doing. So we've got to do more to lift all the boats, right?
That's right.
Rising tides lift all the boats. And so it is going to matter.
That's right. And there already are state programs that do micro lending to Black businesses in particular, and just working to see how we can strengthen those and make them more effective and see what the return on investment is on the state level, but making more of an intentional effort of making sure that we leverage those with private dollars, right? So we make lending to Black businesses, minority businesses, of value. We make them something that is not a risk. We make them something that's profitable for businesses and good business. So I look forward to your leadership on that, because I know that you're going to bring that to the table in terms of understanding how we can really impact and leverage impact on the state level with private resources to really make to bridge economic gaps in communities of color.
Yes. One of the other things, I do know that the statute requires some sort of minority contracting, but I want to look at that. I don't want to take that at surface as a given. So that is something I want to look into once I get elected. And furthermore, I know that the statute requires that each agency hire people from among the disability community, and I know that's not happening. So there's a lot of rocks that I want to look under, including what you're talking about.
Love it. Love it.
Awesome. So affordable housing is another
yes,
major. I'm really passionate about, and sit on the board of Big Bend Habitat for Humanity. And I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts. I mean, I know Independence Landing, but, outside of persons with disabilities, we have a lot of folks that are working poor and really, are house burdened. I think COVID and the laying off of folks, or the reduction of hours, that sort of thing is going to really exacerbate the housing issue. I know there have been moratoriums on evictions and on foreclosures, but still, the foreclosures really only apply to government-backed loans. So all the other loans, folks that have loans that aren't government-backed, they're kind of on their own. So, I think it's the affordable housing issue is going to get even worse than it already is.
Well, and for some reason we always sweep the dollars. But in terms of affordable housing, so I actually have personal experience in that. My grandmother, the one that put my father into the nursing home, she had another baby that was born in 1920 that was damaged at birth with forceps. And so she kept that baby home with my father and his other sister in a nursing home in an orphanage. And I used to visit her in HUD housing. I would go to, it was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and so I would go there, and that was where she lived. And I was grateful that she had a roof over her head. But so affordable housing is a critical need for people that just where you can live. You can't live on the street. And as a result of my work with Independence Landing, I've learned so much about affordable housing and about affordable housing projects that are built and apartment complexes that are built. Everybody's, the perception is that it's just housing. You've got to there's a lot of demands you have to meet. You don't just get to live there. You have to be, getting jobs, and you've got to be getting services, and you've got to be doing, like with Independence Landing, you're not allowed to live there unless you're also you've got to meet certain criteria to be able to live there. You've got to have services wrapped around, you've got to be able to live independently, successfully, you've got to have supports and what have you, so that you don't, it can't just be, it's not as easy as it looks. And everybody thinks that there's no kind of requirements that anybody has to follow. And there's a whole boatload for all of the affordable housing projects. So, in terms of the moratorium, I keep thinking that all these relief bills that are going through DC, we ought to be having some relief for homeowners or for property owners with the evictions, so that they are incentivized they can't evict, but they can't go forever either without having to pay a mortgage on the property that they're owning. So somebody's got to be thinking about all of it. And I can tell you that we know that when somebody's got a stable roof over their head, their health is better. Their lives are better. Their food supply is a little bit better. So this is three basic tenets of life. Food, water, shelter. That kind of thing. And so it's critically critically important. That we address really and truly in Florida, and particularly with our property values going up and up and up and up, that we have look at some real affordable housing solutions for the workforce, or we're not going to have any place we may live.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be a key issue.
Christique, I know real estate is your background. Did you want to?
Oh, indeed. Well, I mean, if we look on track and the appreciation rates that have happened in the last 5 years, we'll see that areas like Southside, Frenchtown, is going to experience a severe uptick because there is no inventory, hardly any inventory available under $175,000 in this community. That's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that is actually livable. Right. When I say livable, it means it has 3 bedrooms, real ones that you get beds in, and has space and isn't on a matchbox lot.
Right.
We talk about infill development in the community and strategies for affordability so families can get into this housing. I think we need to be mindful of 2 things. First of all, the house is the sole, for many people, source of wealth building and wealth development. Right. So we need to be very careful how we apply land trust options to that. And the second being that, as we think of affordability, we need to be very strategic that we don't create a situation where we're displacing existing neighbors to bring in other neighbors due to, whether it be opportunity perceived, because these appreciation rates are not going to continue. And so I think, to your point, Allison, making sure that we're being extremely intentional in our affordable housing strategy and our affordable housing policy, how we arrive at providing housing for families so that they are a vehicle of wealth building, but they're also a vehicle to support the lifestyle of our neighbors and to the overall quality of our neighborhoods. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. We need to leave the trust fund alone, and we need to work with our local AHACs and local housing committees to make sure that the affordable housing policy they develop, that SHIP funding is used for, fits the needs of their constituents in their cities. So you are absolutely on point. And we can only arrive at that through authentic and legitimate engagement with neighbors.
And intentional and being, and yeah, it's a pet peeve of mine. Whenever there's a need for dollars, it's like, let's go get their money.
Yep. Swipe the fund. So it's fully funded now. Hopefully it stays fully funded, because we know that, affordable housing is a need all over the state. Hopefully. It don't bother. I'm sorry that I'm having terrible technology issues today.
It happens. So I was on a call this morning. I just couldn't. I had to do a face and then phone to talk, to be heard.
So we have a question on the floor from our First Lady, Jenny Daly. She says,
Yes. Hey, Jenny. So first of all, I have to do a shout out to Jenny for she helped us with our land use changes with Independence Landing. So she was on our board at the time, and she just got everything put in place so we could do it the right way and contact the right people, not in the city, but we actually had to hire a firm that does that work. And she just made sure that we did it the right way. We did an RFP out and all that kind of stuff. Just super. Because that's when talking about the Children's Services Council for Tallahassee, and I absolutely support the Children's Services Council. Absolutely, our children need more resources. I was talking with you about this the other day, Nicole, about the ACEs study, and about the if y'all have not heard about the book The Deepest Well, you should read it. It's amazing, and you feel like you're talking to a girlfriend. She's the Surgeon General for the state of California who wrote this book, a woman of color, brilliant personality plus. She talks about the needs of our children and the adverse childhood incidences and how they impact health longevity wise. We're talking how it can kill a person early, not to mention the mental health needs. So there's physical and mental health implications in her review. And so to that end, we definitely need a Children's Services Council. And
yes, we do.
My child having been an early intervention baby, I would love to have seen more happen to him. He got plenty of help from birth to 3, but from 3 to 5, at the bottom dropped down. And just trying to put the pieces back together for him at that point was really so. Again, making up for lost time. a Children's Services Council is necessary for our area, and I'm a big supporter and a donor to it. So proudly.
Good deal. So we have quite a few folks just giving shouts out saying thank you for having the discussion. That's Brittany Gathers and Freddie Grooms, McClendon, Allison is so sharp and responsive to the issues of the day. I wish her much success.
Thank you, Freddie.
Yes. So we're coming around the corner to our hour. So I want to allow, any closing remarks from our guests and also to Allison, and tell folks how they can connect with you and support your efforts. So let's hear from Talithia and then Christique and then Allison.
All right. Thank you. Glad to be on. Always a pleasure to be on Conversations with Nicole's platform, and to be with this dynamic panel of women today is always, I see you every day, Christique, Allison, not so much, but these three community chicks I see all the time. So always wonderful what we do. I was able to listen in and hear a lot of what we talked about today: early childhood education, children with disabilities, affordable housing, community, and the funding that we need in order to interrupt the generational poverty that's actually happening. On the state level, we're recognizing that we're out here, boots on the ground, right? And we're in the mud with it. But if you're successful, Allison, you're headed up to the state where policy is made, right? So as we grow in our own leadership and we understand that we can't do anything without policy change. So I'm excited if whoever wins, that we definitely talk about, Medicaid reform, affordable housing coming down the state. It's early childhood education. Why are we failing and lagging behind in our early childhood education, and what our school readiness scores looks like? I got so many things that if I had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with you, that I think on the state level we need to be pushing for. But I'm excited that you're progressive and thinking about these things ahead of time, and I've already been working them. So not just thinking about them, but you've actually been putting, action to the work. And so I'm excited to support you, excited to actually work alongside you, and let's do it.
Yeah, we got lots to do for sure, and I'm right there on it. I do think we need to expand Medicaid in this state, and particularly right now with COVID, because we have an obligation to do that.
Well, firebrands recognize firebrands. And I have always enjoyed working with very intentional, powerful, courageous, positive women, because I believe that that's how we get things done. And being proactive, being intentional, making sure on the local level we understand and define our problems properly, so that when we reach the state level and go after the policy change that's needed, or after the resource base that's needed, we already have properly defined the issue here on the local level. That is how we make generational change. Correct. We have to do the homework. We have to assess. And Allison, you've gone through the process, of course, on many levels. What I appreciate is that what your significant capstone work is now really brings it home. Your son had a need. And what you did is took the need that your son had and applied it to the citizen base of Florida, and particularly Leon County. And now you're going to have a development that serves the need of not just your son, but many other persons that need exactly what your son needs. And that's the type of intentional, proactive leadership that we need in office. We go by one political party or next, but I'm at the point now where I'm going to vote for people that are making it happen. And if I can see you making it happen with integrity, you can count on me. Whatever we need to work out ideologically, whatever coffee we need to drink to talk through the issues on the personal note, we will do that. Coffee, wine, whatever it takes. But when I see people who are making the action, Pazuki, whatever it takes, when I see people who are walking the walk and not just talking the talk, you have a friend in me, a loyal friend in me. So, I believe you'll be victorious. I believe you have what it takes to take our area to the next place. I believe it. But right now, you're already making the difference. And I appreciate what you already have done and look forward to what you will do.
Well, thank you. And I will say this much, that what I want to do, what has driven me to this is the collective work that we've all been doing together, and the collective work that's been done, that I've been doing for decades. I know the heart of this community and the drive, and I love the people of this community, particularly the three of you here on this call or this Zoom with me, because I know that you are invested. You're not talking because you want something. You're not talking because it's all about somebody else. And I want to take that collective force and collective compassion and collective know-how to that state legislature to get things done, not just for this community, but for people like the people we care about, and so that particularly for this community. And so I am going to lean on y'all for guidance, and I want you to guide me, chide me, teach me, whatever. I want to make sure there's an open door so that I get it right, because my motivation is to get it right, so that I make every day count for the people that are counting on all of us, whether you're elected or not, to be there for them. So that's
well said. So how can folks reach out to you, Allison?
AllisonTant.com. Just go there, and you can leave. There's an email. You can email me there. That's probably the easiest way. And it's ALLISONT as in Tom, ANT, AllisonTant.com. And we'll get back to you. I've always got my phone, just like these other all of y'all right here watching. Up to. My husband, did he put a timer on my phone to go off? Well, I had to undisable that thing. So I'm like, what the heck are you doing to me? I gotta keep up. So, but also I wanted to say thank you, Nicole, for this wonderful opportunity to connect. And to Alethea and Christy, thank you, all three of you, for what you do in this community. You are, I'm looking forward to supporting you guys. I want you guys to be thinking about running for office, and I want to support you. Oh yeah. Look, don't you give me that look. I see that. I want you all. You need a big.
We're here for you now, Allison. So we're here for you.
Well, that's what we do. That's what we do. We support each other. So sorry about the dogs. Shh. They heard me pat the table.
That's all right. Mocha's sitting right here looking at you on video. Say hello.
It's so good. All right, well, that's fine. The dog is gonna close it out. So again, just a reminder to register to vote by July 20th, Monday, which is my birthday. Also vote by mail, so mail-in ballot, early voting, which begins August 3rd, and vote in the primary on August 18th.
LeonVotes.org is how you can get more information.
LeonVotes.org. LeonVotes.org. All right, very good. Well, thank you, ladies.
I appreciate y'all. Appreciate you so much.
We love you, Allison. Love you.
Love you more.